Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's Red Nation Indigenous Filmmakers Lounge for the 25th RNCI Red Nation International Film Festival. And we have a spotlight today on this new film, Sacred Connections. It's a doc short, and our guest filmmaker is McKenna Dorman. And so McKenna, oh my gosh. Okay, so I'm everybody, this is McKenna, and I want to introduce you respectfully. And there's a big thing in our family, and also within the Red Nation family. I mispronounce all the time. So it's like it's not okay, but it's just what happens. So I want to introduce you properly. So I'm going to introduce, and then you could say what nation you're from. Is that okay, McKenna?
That's wonderful. Thank you.
Okay, so McKenna Dorman has been an active participant in her tribal relations all of her life. For the past 7 years, she has worked for the tribe on protecting sacred lands, including the sacred tribal falls, and on her cultural and historic preservation with the tribal elders to help document more of their history and culture for future generations. So this film is very, very special film for your nation and for the world to experience from a Native perspective on the environment, the protection of sacred lands, and the emergency of that we are still here, still active, still very, very strong and resilient people. So McKenna, can you please introduce yourself from your tribal nation?
McKenna Dorman Sitsta Stokwabu Chud. My name is McKenna Dorman. I'm from Snoqualmie, Snoqualmie Indian tribe in Western Washington.
And McKenna, from what I understand, she looks like she's 15, but she's 27, and and she's this gorgeous filmmaker. And we have 35 films directed by women this year, which is really exciting. It's the last 2 years we've had 23, so we've upped it by a lot. So that I'm so proud of and very excited about, because as we grow, you know, hopefully that next year we'll have 100, right? So can you tell us about your journey on directing this film, and what was your inspiration to make this movie?
Yeah, this film was a starting point for my tribe, for my people. We realized as we were celebrating our 20 years of federal re-recognition that very little of our Snoqualmie story had been told to even our own tribal members. And it was something that we realized we needed to take the time to pull together from our ancestors, from our elders currently living, and how that story is also being passed down through our youth currently. And so I saw this as an opportunity in this celebration time to kind of reflect on where we've been and our journey to re-recognition, and even more so to our future and where we're headed. So I wanted to take that opportunity last year to document a bit of that.
And was the funding supported by your nation?
Yeah, it was solely funded from our tribal council and our tribe. It was really wonderful to have that support internally, and the recognition that our story still needed to be told.
Well, I asked that question because I feel it's really so important for all of our nations to support our filmmakers, our Native filmmakers, so that we can have more stories. Because media, this is our new, well, it's not new, but I mean, it's our way of, instead of like in the old days with other resources, this is our way to speak our truth, educate, and tell our story, and everyone is more informed about different nations, right? And how we all see ourselves, and that we're still here, and that we're still resilient, and that our youth matter with everything that's going on with our youth on different reserves. I feel that the more they are empowered by film and see themselves, like I see you, you see me, that's powerful. And I feel that the more that happens, the more we continue to make movies, the more that our nation support our native filmmakers, the more our youth will can learn traditional ways, learn their history, and be more involved, and get decolonialized, right?
It's so important. I mean, that being able to see each other is huge. And I think we've even realized that even more this year, being separated in the way that we have, being able to see our Native youth and identifying ourselves with them while they were growing up, it's huge. I think that it really matters in that foundation and that touchstone.
Absolutely. And I know there's a lot of, missing and Indigenous women, and, our youth suicides and all of that. And so I feel the power of film, and that you're 27 and you're a Native woman and you've made this movie is so impactful for future generations to be able to look at you and say, I can do that. I can do that. That's me, and I can do that too, So being a leader in your community and making this movie, what was the core, like the core root of why you took on this subject matter?
It's a new way of storytelling. I was very fortunate to be raised with my people and my culture intact, in me and my family, and knowing that story still needs to be told in a respectful way, in an appropriate way. I think it's really powerful to be able to bring our people together again through those shared stories, and through so much time that has passed, and things that have happened so rapidly at the same time. It was something that I felt needed to be told. And I stepped up to do that for my tribe, for my people, to make sure that other family members and other tribal members' stories were told through this. We have folks that are in that film that are now passed on, and our youth are going to remember their voices and their wisdom that they were sharing through this.
So, McKenna, I usually introduce the film, right, the synopsis, but I prefer, because you are a young filmmaker, that you tell us, you introduce your film and what your film is about. Sacred Connections.
Sacred Connections is about where Snoqualmie's been, our past, our present, and our future wrapped into one. We were once the largest tribe in our region, and we are still here. We're still thriving. But again, our story really hasn't been told yet. And even for people living in our own valley who recognize our place names and our tribal names, they know very little about us. And in this time of celebration, coming up on that 20-year mark of our federal recognition, it was such a long journey from signing the Treaty of Point Elliott in 1855 to losing federal recognition status 100 years later, to nearly 50 more years of fighting for that recognition again, and being successful. And in just 20 years, how far we've come. So it was to honor all of that work from before, and to share in that celebration of watching our youth carry on that work moving forward.
So what has been the response with your film within your nation? Like what?
I think people were very excited. We were able to come together with that again, that 20-year celebration, and it was an amazing event, and just recognizing that we had all been there together through that. We are not a very we didn't have a reservation provided to us after our treaty signing, and so our members live very far away. Or in different cities, and coming together over something like this film and this shared celebration and shared work. I think people were very excited and very moved. I mean, to hear some of our elders' voices that they haven't heard in a long time was something special that I had the permission to share through that film with everyone.
Well, that's very insightful, McKenna, because a lot of people think, you know, our audience, a lot of them think that we're all on reservations or rancherias, but what you just shared is like your nation was like in urban communities, you know, in different parts and spread out. That is more inspiring to me, that you're 27 and you brought everyone together. You brought your whole community together for this film. That brings tears to my eyes. That is so not only spiritual, but so provocative and auspicious and intuitive to take that lead. And I just want to recognize you in that. Because I know, you know, the work that we do here, we've been able to do that as well, is bring community together, and how important that is, and what an emergency that is for our next generations, our future generations, and our elders to know that we care and we love them deeply.
Yeah, we're all still connected no matter how far we are.
Yeah, that's so wonderful. I love that. Okay, so what inspired you to become a filmmaker?
You know, it's something that I had a very new interest in, honestly. There was a documentary that the tribe had been a part of, and I'd been on the periphery looking in on what that process was, and a new idea of what storytelling could be. And it was something that just kind of spoke to me about, this is a story that hasn't been told yet and still needs to. So I had stepped into that role for this story, and hopefully more.
Yeah, oh, absolutely, definitely. So so for all the young people that are watching now or will be watching this interview, what did it take? What was your process? What did it take for you to put all the elements together to create this documentary?
Well, I started with knowing the backbone of what I wanted to tell, which was that past, present, and future in a cohesive story. And it kind of unraveled from there into knowing exactly which path I needed to go for who to talk to. And it was a process of you know, a call out to our tribal members on who wanted to participate, but knowing that there were specific voices, again, starting with our elders in the knowledge that they've passed down, and in how they've led certain work for the tribe, for our people, for sacred lands, for the fish wars that we talked about in the film. Knowing who had specifically been leading that work, I wanted to start there. But there was a general call on who has a story that they'd like to finally tell in this one documentary, but to open up those conversations even in our tribe. So there was a process in scheduling all of those, and and scheduling the filming even throughout a year through our celebrations, canoe journey and elders gatherings, harvesting outings that we had been planning throughout the year. So it was just kind of a lot of coordination in pulling that all together and pulling those narratives together as well.
How did you find your crew?
We worked with Hemlock Productions, Nils Cowan and Mark Pingree, who had worked on that documentary. And so I knew the work that they did and the respect that they have in helping film and tell Native narratives and stories. I was really impressed with their work. And so we helped, we found them through that work.
That sounds wonderful. And what was your most funny story and or memorable moment in making your film?
It's funny that the elders narratives, while that was the foundation of what I wanted to start with, and I knew what questions to ask with them, it was really down to the timing. Some of those interviews we didn't get, we were not able to schedule those until the film was almost done. It was funny because and that's that's just kind of how things work out. Especially with visiting with our elders, you never know what stories are going to come out when you have your set questions. And it was just so wonderful to have that reminiscing time. And there were so many people in that day where they all came at the same time and they all wanted to open up at the same time. So I really feel like it's funny, but it was also just poignant on how our stories come about and how people will open up when the time is right.
Yeah, as a filmmaker, I've had those those experiences too. Like you're set, and then it goes into this other direction, and I love that when that happens because it's like magical. It's just like this whole thing that happens spontaneously. So I want to know what you, as a filmmaker, have plans for your next film or films.
Well, I don't have any plans for filming right now, but there are stories that I'd like to expand on for Snoqualmie, and our treaty rights being one. Touched on the fish wars and harvesting, but the reclaiming of our connections to our lands and our sacred lands and those seasonal cycles that we all still carry and honor. I would like to tell more about what that means for Snoqualmie specifically. I think it's true of every individual that we have those connections and how we honor those. But Snoqualmie is a little unique, and I'd really like to talk a little bit more about that in the future.
That would be so fascinating. I would love to see that. As a director, what was your most challenging? I don't want to say moment, but what was the most challenging thing you had to do in making this documentary?
I think it was even narrowing the story down to what it became, because there's so much still needs to be said, and honing in what this message needed to be. It was a good challenge. I enjoyed it. I think I learned a lot through it.
Yeah, I could share with you my first documentary. It was like 500 years ago, but but I wanted it to be an hour, and I said, okay, I'm going to work with kids first, and animals, and outside, elements, and I had 3 cameras. Oh my God. Okay. So first day, 2 of the cameras broke down.
Oh.
So we had one camera. So I had to think really fast on my feet, you know. Oh my gosh. So out of all that footage, we got 9 minutes.
Yeah.
You know, and it was good. I mean, I picked up like honorable mention awards at non-native festivals, right? For my first doc. That's pretty good.
Amazing.
But, yeah, but it's challenging, and it's also inspiring to be able to hone in, right? And it's in the editing, and I love editing. Oh my God. Because editing is where a lot of the magic is.
A lot of it.
Yeah, and that can make or break a film immediately.
Mm-hmm.
So how did you find your editor?
So we had been, again, kind of watching how that documentary had been playing out. And so a lot of the team that had been helping with that had helped with this film too. So it was, I'll have to defer to Nils. He's really well connected in finding just some amazing people in how they have honed their skills.
Yeah, yeah. So yes, so editing is magical. I love editing. And your experience in that, did you love it?
I loved it. Yeah. Yeah, it really does. It changes the story, you know, way or another.
Yeah, yeah.
It's a very powerful tool.
Yeah, it is. So let me think. Who has inspired you?
I mean, it's kind of a simple answer. It's my elders. I am so in awe every time. I mean, I grew up hearing stories about the work that they did, but as I've grown and, you know, learning even more about what it took to get our tribe here, it is awe-inspiring to me to see everything that they gave up and sacrificed and preserved for us. I think that we all have that in our own families, but in our tribes and nations. But it always amazes me to see how far we've come because of all of the work. And it's a little daunting because we have that work now to carry on for them and for our future generations.
Absolutely. So I'd like to touch in on give me a moment, because I had this question. It was a really powerful question for you. I'm getting inspired from you. That's how I roll. Like it's like I just pulling out from you. What would you like to see happen in regards to your nation for the future, for filmmakers from your nation? Like what would you like to see happen? Because now that you've made this film, you have a voice, right? So what would you like to see happen?
I think kind of touching on one of your earlier points about that recognition, when our youth can see themselves and see potential in themselves. I think that that's huge. And you know, with our youth being as spread out as they are as well, having some place to connect, if that's through film, if that's through storytelling, you know, there are ways for them to tell their own unique stories, because each of them has a unique story. And, you know, we come together through our past, through our culture, through our tribe. But being able to step up, you know, in those roles as well, in those leadership roles, because it's an honor to tell, you know, our tribe's story, and each of them has another piece of that story.
Yeah. Film is so powerful, isn't it? It's such a powerful medium to be able to convey our history and you know, the reality that we're still here, that we're not relics of the past, that we're vibrant and resilient people.
Mm-hmm.
You know? And that's why I love this film festival.
Me too.
I know. I am so excited for you and your future. I think you're extremely talented, and I encourage you to continue making movies, continuing to follow your heart and your intuition in this, because you have a very unique point of view, because all of you are not on a reservation, right? So this is an incredible challenge and a provocative way to tell your story. It really is. I love this. I really love this. It's making me think of all these other ideas. I'm gonna have to call you later.
Yeah.
Give you some ideas. But I want to thank you for being here with us today. And I want to ask you one last question. What would you like to tell your audience that's visiting us today and that will watch this interview? It's a two-part question. And what would you like to see happen with your film?
Well, first of all, thank you for joining and watching it. I'd love people to know that we're still here, that we are in some ways even stronger because of what we've been through. And we're thriving now despite everything. And we have a very bright future. For the film, I would really like to share it across the world to help tell that story. That acknowledgement that we're still here, it really matters to have others acknowledge that too. We know who we are, we've always been here, but we'd like to share that story now.
Well, you can watch Sacred Connections at rednationff.com, and you can stream it every day if you want until November 30th. So I encourage you to watch Sacred Connections, and director McKenna Dorman. And I appreciate you being here, and continue making movies. You're very
Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're a very talented young filmmaker. So everybody that's viewing, the festival runs till November 30th. We have our Red Nation Award ceremony coming up on November 29th. And we're ending the festival on November 30th with a concert series. Red Nation Celebration Institute started out as a concert series, and in 25 years we've grown to this enterprise, which is fabulous. And so you can see, it's our fundraiser. We've never had a fundraiser, so we're having our first fundraiser, and it's Artists in Solidarity for Creating Systemic Change Through Music, Art, and Film. And that one's just donation based. But for the award ceremony, you need to get a ticket, a VIP ticket, because it's going to be an exclusive engagement. So you can only view the award ceremony if you have a ticket. So I'd suggest you go get your ticket. And for our concert series, we have featuring artists like Joe Walsh and Jennifer Warrens and Joanne Shenandoah and Corey Morin and Richard T. Bear and Bruce Sugar, and it just goes on and on. So visit the site, rednationff.com. 105 films streaming until November 30th. And McKenna, thank you again. And I appreciate you, and keep making movies.
Thank you so much.
Okay, see you all later.